double checking real quick to make sure everything's going all right. I'm hopefully my voice should be louder this time. Apparently it was really quiet last time. I was looking through, watching it yesterday, and I don't know why it was so quiet. It's probably still quieter than I'm hoping today, but yeah, we shall see. Anyway, while I'm getting this tested and making sure that everything is going smoothly, just a couple things. So I did manage to add a screencast, or a button press screencast thing. Basically, if you look in the bottom left-hand side, you can see every single button that I press. And so if you're trying to follow along or trying to figure out the controls, because sometimes I'll forget to say something, this way it's a lot easier for you to be able to follow along. So, let's see what to make today. That's the secret behind a lot of these, is that sometimes I have an idea as to what I want to be making, sometimes I don't. Let's make a tiny little castle, like a little rook, like a tower. So we're going to press X to delete the cube. We're going to shift it. I don't need to say what the buttons are anymore. I just realized that. We're going to add a cylinder, then grab and slide that along the Z-axis. I know it doesn't have to be level with the ground. I just like it to. And we're going to scale it upwards, right about there. Probably should have done the shifting later. Oh well. Also, this one, unless I decide to be crazy, this one will not be using the drawing tablet at all. So, easy to follow along, pen and mouse. Hopefully this time I'll get to be able to address some of the texturing and material things that I didn't really get to touch on yesterday, because yeah, I actually had to run, so we're going to try something new today. Alright, so we're going to take this cylinder right here, and just to start, we're going to do a single subdivision. Oop. Yeah, see, there's the issue. We want to make it smooth, but we don't want it to be like that. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to shift over into edit mode, and we're going to let's do faces, and let's unselect these two, so only those faces should be active. Then we add a subdivision surface modifier, and it does the same thing. Wow, that's problematic. It looks really cool though, I will say that. Okay, so we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to do the thing that I said not to do last time, but we're going to do it anyway. So we're going to hop over into wireframe. Everything's going to be selected, which it was already. Now I'm realizing that. And we're just going to right-click and subdivide, and then we'll worry about smoothing it out later. So it's not perfect, but oh well. Shade smooth. Boom. It looks better. Anyway. So, in order to make this kind of like a traditional rook, there's a couple things you can do in order to get that. You can go from memory, or you can just go to, you know, just the internet and get an image of a rook. So I'm just going to get a, there's this website I like to use. It's called Pixabay, P-I-X-A, Pixabay, actually. Wow, I've been calling it the wrong thing forever. Yeah, it's pixabay.com. You can get free images there. The only thing is, make sure, do a reverse image search when you find them, because most of the time they're fine, but sometimes it's stuff that people take and then upload as free, and you can use it, but it's not really free because it's technically of something else. Like we saw, there was some image on there that we didn't realize was actually, oh, what was it? I think it was like a Star Wars thing. I don't remember. Anyway, it was some ship some spaceship that we didn't recognize at first, but then it turns out it was totally a copyright ship. But because it was a fan art of a copyrighted ship, they said that it was free to use, but you can't technically use it commercially because it's fan art of a already existing idea, if that made any sort of sense. It's all weird and complicated. So, but for the purposes of this, it also shouldn't be that big of a deal because, I mean, we're not really doing this to make money, probably. So, what I'm going to do over here is do the thing that I forgot to do last time, which is save. I'm just going to make a new folder, and today is 10/20. That's saved, and then you can't see it, but off screen I saved an image to that same folder, and then we're going to press numpad 1 to shift into a horizontal view like this. Shift A, I'm going to add an image, reference image. We're going to click that same image there, grab Z, scale it up until it looks about right. Boom, not bad. Okay, so now there's a couple ways you can do this. If you want to, you can go in and then go into edit mode and then wireframe it and then, you know, click on something, activate your whatchamabucket, proportional editing, then grab it and move it around, which that, you know, that does work. I used that to make some other thing. It was a statue, kind of a low poly statue, but I approximated, you know, the human form, which was cool. The other way you can do this is because this is, you know, a pretty simple object. It's uniform all the way around. There's nothing complicated going on. So what you can do instead is if you just hit Control R, whoops, something's not right, there we go. Control R, that should activate a loop cut, or not. Maybe I'm in the wrong mode. Why you no work? Let's try this again. There we go. Yep, so you can activate a loop cut there. Looks like you have to be in edit mode for that. Learn something new every day. Let's see. There's nothing wrong with having a little more than you need. I like to get it kind of precise, but it's totally fine. But it looks like for this we're probably going to need 4. Then you just right click in order to get that in the right spot, and then I'm going to highlight this again. Control R, and then it's not showing it for some reason down at the bottom left, but in order to create this many, I'm just using the scroll wheel. So you scroll down and it reduces the number, you scroll up and it increases the number. We're going to go with 4 here as well. You left click and then it does this thing where it lets you slide it. If you right click, it just auto sets it at the center. You know, that makes it just a little bit easier to work with. That way it's a little more uniform. Okay, so we got lots of things here, so let us zoom in a little. And the background is not going to be forgiving because that is a different color. I'm going to shift this over so you can actually see the... oh, okay. Anyway, we'll go like that. Ah, no. There we go. Okay, so then we're just going to be doing some scaling, and you'll notice I have this circle on. That's because I have proportional editing activated. Especially for something like this, it's generally a good idea to have that because, with the exception of certain parts, you want it to be kind of curved, so this just kind of reduces that problem. The only downside is it affects everything, even stuff you edited, so if you're wanting that to not be a thing, you can just scroll in. So scrolling up reduces the size of that circle, and if it's not touching this area up here, then it doesn't affect it. But you see, if I widen this a little bit, then it starts to affect it. And the bigger it is, the more it affects it, until it's big enough that it basically just treats it all as one object, which we don't want that to be a thing. So instead, we're going to go back here and just get this decently level. Again, the other thing to remember is this is your sculpture. There will be people who tell you that you have to do it a certain way. It's totally up to you, man. Do how you want to do it. Don't sweat it. This one we're gonna do a little moving up, just to kind of create that effect. Yeah. I think I'm actually gonna scale this one. Oops. Shrink that down. I'm gonna shrink that. Yeah, then I'll inflate that later. Actually, I'm gonna move this over just a tad. Bingo. Then we're gonna hop back over to, oops, there we go. Hop back over to edit mode. And then we're gonna keep working with this. So we're gonna scale that. I'm realizing now I should have scaled this anyway, but it's okay. Oops, no, I shouldn't have. I'm gonna shift this down actually, so we're gonna drop this down here. Yeah, like there's fine. And then we'll use this as kind of a midpoint, so shift that upwards. And we'll set that like here. Again, I'm not trying to follow the image perfectly, just kind of making a rough approximation. It's more of a guideline than anything. But now that enables you to create that edge effect, and because this is, oh, it looks like that's actually pretty uniform, so let's shrink that down a little. Yeah, there we go. One of the best things you can do, and this is coming from a novice of course, but one of the best things you can do when it comes to 3D modeling is to find shapes that approximate other shapes. So like in this case, cylinder is a really good example of a chess rook. So all you have to do is take that same piece and you can use that to approximate other things. Oops, did not mean to do that. Just regular scale. That's okay, we all make mistakes. Yeah. I'm gonna ignore that ridge piece right there. Scale those together. Yeah, let's drag that down first. Wider base instead of that little divot, and we'll shift that up. More of a bump. Yeah, right there. Then if we hide the empty and drop back into object mode and make this look like a solid, you can see that it's, you know, kind of a rough approximation. So obviously not perfect. If we shade that flat, you can see all those rough cuts and everything. Just for funsies, I'm curious what this looks like subdivided, because it's going to curve the tops. Oh, it's actually not too bad. Looks like one of those pieces from Sorry, like the board game Sorry, except like if it lost weight. Or like a Hershey's Kiss wearing a hat. Also, if anyone's watching right now, let me know how the sound quality is, because it's challenging for me to measure that, unfortunately. Yeah, just let me know. Or not. Whatever works is alright. Alright. So it's not bad looking. What I really want to do is I want to create, so kind of like the chess piece from earlier. Oops, gotta get over here first. Like the chess piece from earlier, you'll notice, oops, that's the camera. Wait, no, there we go. Yeah. It has those little divots right there, and I wish I could rotate on the image. You know, if I do, it just does this. It has those little divots. So I know there's ways you can do that, and there's ways you can model it. I'm going to show you the way that I prefer to do it, the way that's technically the easy way. And this is something that I didn't find out about for a very long time. And by very long, I mean like a couple weeks after I started learning. So not really that long, but there you go. So I'm going to introduce you guys to something that is known as the Boolean modifier. So you come over here, actually, before you do that, you're going to add a new object. In this case, we're trying to create like that circular divot, so we're going to add a new cylinder, drag it out of there. Oh, accidentally hit 5. If you hit 5, it puts it in your isometric mode, which removes perspective, which sometimes is fun to work with, especially if you're creating like a landscape scene. But then again, sometimes you don't want that if you're working on a landscape scene, so win some, you lose some. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and click on the Boolean, and then you're going to do the difference, click on this object here, and then what you'll notice is if you drag it through, what actually happens is that now there's a hole in the exact shape of that object. So that's really convenient for performing cuts and whatnot. So what you're going to do is you're going to come over to this mode, just hit numpad 7 to give you a top view. Actually, before you do that, you're going to want to make sure that this is about as high as you want it. So there is a little bit of an issue with this shape. It's because the rook is slightly more V-shaped, and this is definitely, the cylinder is definitely a pillar. So there's a couple ways you can combat that if you want to combat that. The easiest thing to do, obviously, is just to come up to the top here, select these top vertices, hit scale, and then do that. Bada bing, bada boom. You got yourself a delicious, wonderful Kentucky Fried Chicken bucket. That's actually too wide, but anyway. Scale that down slightly. Anyway, that'll give you kind of a curve. You don't really have to if you don't want to. It's not that big of a deal, but I think it's fun. Come back to object mode. Let's shrink this a little bit to get the right size. Grab that. Another thing to note is that when you are in these two-dimensional views, such as hitting 7 or 1, any movements that you apply will not be applied to the dimension that you can't see, which is a really nice feature, because if you are not in one of those modes, so like here, and you drag it, you're dragging it in 3 dimensions, and sometimes it's a little harder to control. Like I'm trying to drag it closer to the screen, but really the closest you can do is, you know, kind of lose it along one of the other axes, and then you have to rotate it, and then you can move it that way, but, you know, that's a pain. Instead, all you have to do is just clip over to one of those, bada bing, bada boom. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that's not bad. There's some not so niceness along the edges. That's also because this here, if we shade that smooth, let's see what that does. Okay, yeah. So it applies the exact cut that, you know, the shape looks like. That's pretty nice. Wonder what happens if we shade this flat. Oh, that's cool. I mean, it makes sense given what we just saw, but still, it's really cool. Obviously it's not perfectly centered, so we can try to correct that by coming over here to this tab, click on the cylinder that you can't currently see, Click on that, and then the location on the x-axis will hit 0, the location on the y-axis also hit 0. And then we'll see what happens here. Not perfect, but not terrible, so we'll just shrink it down a little bit. There is going to be some folding, just because you have a lot of these coordinates and corners that are not lining up perfectly. So if you shade flat, they kind of disappear. So I think I'll shade flat for this part. Same with you, shade flat. And then that gives you that, which isn't too bad. Let's see, how far down do we want this to go? Probably further. Like here-ish. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, not too bad. And then when you've got the transition that you want, or not the transition, but the cut, let's say that. When you've got the cut that you want, just come over here. This modifier has not been applied. Hit apply, and then you can, delete this object or just hide it or whatever. Just remember that if you do, I'm going to undo this here real quick. Just a fun thing to be aware of. So I switch over into camera mode. Yeah, so right here you can hide the cylinder. It looks all great, but the problem is it's still technically there, it's just being hidden from view. That's actually not too bad looking. It's weirdly really cool. I might just intentionally make this thing low poly. That looks weirdly, I don't know, I just like it like that. Yeah, anyway, like I was saying, yeah, be sure to remember that you don't want to forget that the thing is still there, but also you should be aware that because the Boolean effect is applied, intersecting it no longer causes chunks of it to disappear, and the chunk that has disappeared will stay the same. So for the time being, I'm just gonna, well, not for the time being, but I'm just gonna delete that, so why not? Okay, that's not too bad looking. Let's go back to our reference image. Hide this. I'm going to rename the cylinder Rook, because it's unnecessarily long and complicated. So you'll notice that those have their, their little cuts in them. I don't think I'm going to do the angular thing that they have going on there. Mostly just because it's not what I'm aiming for, and don't really want to. So instead, let's see, normally those rooks, if I remember correctly, have 5 individual cuts. So there's a couple things we can do. We could use an array modifier on a set of cubes and then apply them around a curve, and that would kind of give us the distorted but also straight line feel that you would get from that. Or we can try a easier way, and that would just be another application of the Boolean modifier. Let's just do the Boolean, because arrays on a curve are still one of those things that I'm figuring out. And as much as this is about me learning, it's also about you learning, and frankly, I don't feel confident enough to figure it out. That made sense in my head. Anyway, well, let's experiment. Let's try it out. Anyway, let's just see how it works. So in order to apply it to a curve, you're going to create a curve. For this instance, we're going to use a circle. And then we're going to create an object. In this case, we're going to do a cube. Drag that up, scale that down, stretch it out on the x-axis. Boom. Drag that. Where are you? There you are. Scale that up on the Z. Grab it, drag it up a little bit. Okay, now for this, let's try to apply an array modifier. And it may look like it made it longer, but what it's actually doing is it's trying to offset it, but the two are intersecting. These two are actually flush with each other. So that's applied, and then we're going to add a curve modifier. Object in question will be that. See, that is the thing that I'm trying to figure out, because it does that. And I haven't quite figured out why. So if you do that, they're all attached to each other. Fixed count, fit curve. And if we apply that to the curve, what did I do? I created infinitely many. What happens if we put 0? Okay, let's not do that. Fixed count 2, give them a slight offset, like that, maybe. 4 or 5. I select the original. Scale on the, what happens if I scale on the X? That happens, okay. So if I scale on the Y, that could actually work. Then if I scale, what happens if I scale on the Z? Okay, that actually makes sense. So I want to make them thinner. That. Actually, that's not half bad. Okay, now I just need to bring them together. Nope, not like that. Now, because if I do that, if I grab, yeah, there we go. Increase the relative offset slightly. Something in me tells me that that's not perfectly aligned, but my eyes tell me that it is. I'm not sure. Anyway, let's scale that on the Z there and then drag that down a little bit. Okay. Then we'll do the Boolean modifier. Do the difference, select that as our object, and see what happens if we move the cube. Hey! That actually looks pretty good. It's a little thinner than I want, so let's go back to the cubes themselves and scale them down. Nah. Scale them on the x-axis. That, and then increase the relative offset until it's back to what we had before. That looks right. That feels right. Ooh, decisions. Let's just go in the middle. Boom! Let's see what happens now. Oh yeah. That's a good boy. Okay, cool beans. So let's click over here, apply that, and then we can just get rid of the cube, the invisible cube. That wasn't actually too hard. Just as a note, there was obviously some distorting that happened. I know there's a way to make an object follow a curve and not distort. I don't know how to realistically recreate that, unfortunately. But this is one way to achieve that effect. So, for newbies, it's not bad. There you go. Curious how much this lines up with the reference image. Not a whole lot. But that's okay. Well, actually, it's not too bad. Okay. What next? What else do we want to address in modeling? This itself is looking pretty good. It's a simple piece, not too overly complicated. I mean, yeah, there's a decent amount of vertices, but it could be indefinitely worse. I mean, if you want it to be worse. Ooh. Let's see. And I can feel someone out there screaming. Let's see what happens if we apply this to that. Ooh, and it turns into something out of my nightmares. I hate that. Is there a way to Camel Clark smooth keep corners? Doesn't seem like it's keeping corners. Sharp. I'm not seeing any real difference between the two. Huh. Anyway, worry about that later. So we have our rook here. Looks pretty good. Oh, so I was toying with the idea of making this originally out of little stone bricks, you know, making it look like it was an actual like tower. But I've kind of gotten attached to the whole idea of this being a chess piece. So instead of that, let's hop over to our free image stuff and get a wood image. It's gonna take a second to find one. Okay. This one's not bad. Okay, so basic shading. Going to switch over to rendered. Go here. Yeah. Actually looks surprisingly good. We're going to add a new material texture, and we'll touch on the shading tab in a second. You can do basic material stuff over here, and then you're going to come to where it says base color and click that side. You'll have some stuff that pops up and you click image texture. Then down here you can click open. You need to refresh. Where'd it go? Let me try this again. Oh, whoops. That is not a JPEG file. Let me try that again. There we go. Okay, now if I refresh, boom, wood. Okay, so it applies kind of a basic wood texture to it, which actually makes me tempted to shade smooth. That actually looks pretty good. And with something like this, the seam isn't even bad because multiple times, or frequently, you see that in a piece like this. You know, just like the different pieces of wood they used squished together. At least I saw them in mine. Maybe I just had really cheap chess sets growing up. I mean, actually, yeah. But anyway, so in an example like this, the seam isn't even terrible. I guess the worst part is that it doesn't continue all the way through, but if we really wanted, we could work that out, or we could just do the production quality way and just hide it. So that's a pretty decent wood material, but we can make it better. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop over to the shading tab and switch this over to rendered, so that'll give us the image we had before. Let's also hide that circle. This thing is nice, but I don't think it deserves a halo quite yet. Yet being the key operative word. Alright, so we have this material right here. So what we're we're going to do is we're going to add a shade mixer, or a mix shader. Clip this over here. It's going to get mad because I'm not supposed to do that. So you're going to disregard what I just said, and you're going to drag this over here instead. Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to apply another, let's see, let's do a glossy. Why not? Mix the shaders together, and then the color we're going to use, yeah, and that'll give it kind of a polished look. And we're going to drop the darkness. Out of context, that sounds way cooler than it actually is. Yeah, so we're going to make that kind of a brownish color. Or you know what, let's make it kind of a reddish, like a reddish-brownish. And then roughness. Let's see. Somewhere around there. Then, aha! Boy, that might be a little too dark. That might be a little too light. Want it to be kind of a darker color. I guess this is technically the combination between the two. So let's try something else. Just delete that, delete that. How about before we start with color, let's work with the texture. So we're just going to go over here and do, that's horrendous. So that's what not to do. That is taking different spots on the wood and making them appear to stand out, which you gotta admit from afar does create a fairly decent rough-hewn wood texture, but when you get up close it's just terrifying. So we're not gonna do that. Instead, what you should do, kids, is you should add a displacement node. Stick this down here, take your color, stick it in your height, take the displacement here, stick it over there. See, it looks terrible. What do? You scale it down. Wow. Then all you have to do is add a +1, and it's slightly less horrendous. So you can also modify that. I normally do a 0.5. Boom. Softer, looks a little more rough-hewn. Not too bad. You even get a more prominent seam, which, you know, I guess wasn't originally what we were going for, but it's not half bad. If that's still a little too rough looking, we can take this down to a 0.3. Just get it the faintest look of roughness. Now this is probably wood that's been polished a couple times, so we'll add a clear coat effect to it. So it'll keep its regular properties, except if I can find the light source, it should make it look shiny. Why are you not shiny? There we go. See? It's shiny. You can also achieve a similar effect, not the same effect, but a similar effect by, let's crank this down a little bit, reducing the roughness as well. That'll make it seem a little softer, and then with that clear coat effect it does look like it was maybe dipped in resin or something like that, so not too bad. We can make it look metallic, which is kind of cool. Let's turn that up a little bit. We don't want it to be too soft. Turn in that clear coat a little bit. I'm not trying to make it look like plastic. Just want it to look polished. It's not too bad. Curious. Let's check out the Cycles engine, see what it looks like. So this is more photorealistic. Shade smooth. Let's actually look in the layout. Yeah, so obviously because we don't have all the subdivisions here, it can only do so much. So it's currently shading it as smooth, but in reality, when the light's bouncing off of it, it's still going to leave these flat edges. So if you want to get around that, you can do a subdivision, although I'm still trying to figure out exactly where to go from there, because I don't want it to turn into that horrific thing. Quality, let's turn that down. Nope. Turn that up. Sharp. Nope, that's still horrifying. Let's just leave it as is. And then just kind of angle it. Yeah, see? No one knows the difference. Or you can just embrace it. I don't know, whatever you want to do. Let's go back to the shading menu. Figure out how we can make this thing look different. And let's pop back over to the EV engine. Difference between the two is one of them is a lot less detailed. It looks slightly more cartoonic, but you can still get some pretty good effects in there. I do a lot of renders in EV just because it's kinder to the GPU, which is what I normally use for rendering. Also, you can get some good effects. So with cycles, it's trying to be realistic. So like when you have a light source, it's actually sending, to my understanding, virtual rays to bounce off the surface to create a incredibly photorealistic thing. With Eevee, you're not quite as concerned about that. You still want to create stuff that looks good, but you can also get some nice effects. So like bloom, I wanted to show this off last time, but I didn't really get to. But with a bloom effect, you can take this, and if you get it just right, yeah, see? You get some of that shining there, whereas if you turn that off, it's just well lit. And so that's kind of fun. I really like the bloom effect. Maybe a little too much. But it's a good time. Another thing to talk about, because it's horrific, and I keep discovering it by accident, but you can use this subsurface thing here to change the subsurface color. What it does, yeah, if that looks like flesh to you, that's because that's basically what the subsurface does. The idea being that some objects that you work with, usually organic objects that you try to render, will not be completely blocky and solid. You know, like flesh. Flesh is interesting because it doesn't just have light hitting it, but it also has some light that goes deeper into it. And so when something looks fleshy and organic, it's because your skin is slightly transparent. Not a lot, but slightly. So this is actually letting light go underneath it. If you think that's horrifying, so do I. And yeah, we don't need a rook made out of flesh, at least not today. That will be following me in my nightmares tonight. I want to reduce this mid-level here, so we're going to crank that down to a 3, just for fun. Oh, I like the texture, I like the material. I do want it to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to try let's try Mix RGB instead. And then we'll pop this. What happens if I put that there? Hey, it works. Cool. And then color 2, make this a reddish. Yeah. Make that dark. I guess dark doesn't really do much. Like a brownish. It's definitely darker. You can add more of an emphasis on the brown. The nice thing is, because of the image, it tends to retain that displacement and everything, so that's pretty cool. Not quite loving that color. I do want something a little more maroonish, but I don't want to. Oh, actually, you know, I didn't want to do that originally, but now that I'm seeing it, I kind of like it. It's not perfect, but it's not terrible. What if we? Let's try something not quite there. I'm just making brown again. Kind of a... if we need red, we need to go all the way. It needs to be kind of darker, like blood. But I think what we're going to do instead is we're then going to use this as our FAC. See what happens there. Oh. Never mind. What am I thinking? Also, I think that somehow smoothed out the lighting? I don't know what's up with that. Maybe turn up the roughness a little bit. Yeah, it actually looks pretty good. But again, I'm slightly biased. So if we set mid-level, does it crank all the way up? Yeah! Now it's a chess piece from a futuristic chess game. Actually, I could get behind that. Like the one laser chess game. That one's really cool. So mid-level isn't really doing much for us. Let's just turn that down. Maybe reduce the scale of this to a 2. It's not terrible. The material doesn't feel quite right yet. I'm trying to decide where to go from there. Well, I have this mix shader going on, so what if I use... Oh, tell you what, let's add another color ramp. And we're going to use this to create a pure black and white image. So we'll put this here, and we'll crank, stop it, this all the way up here, this all the way up here, and we'll use that color difference as our FAC. That gives you kind of a well-worn look. So if we increase one of them, yeah, like that. That's kind of cool looking. Also slightly gruesome, but don't think about it. Definitely more prominent on top. Oh, I don't hate it. That's the thing. What if instead of white we use kind of a blue? Oh yeah, because it needs to be black and white. Never mind. Undo that. Oh, there we go. So we have the default image and the other image working against each other. I want to try something, because I do like these chip marks. I think that looks really good paint chip wise, but also I'm not a fan of how it completely strips it there. If it seems to invert it there. That's interesting. Oh, maybe I should just do this instead. Like, actually just flip the two. See, that makes more sense anyway, because when people pick it up, this is going to be the more well-worn area because of what they're touching. Although I tend to pick up chess pieces from the top. I wonder if there's a way to modify the position? Oh, that's just the position of that. Oh, hey, Forge Flareon. How long have I been streaming? Today, it's been a number of time units. I know that's not helpful. I don't know. I kind of got a little distracted. Yeah. Pick them up from the top. See, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Wondering why it's only enabling them. I mean, I know it has to do with the texture of the wood itself, so what if I do a double color ramp? That sounds like a really bad idea. So why do I want to do it so badly? If you get them close together, you get some drastic difference. So So if I drag this one all the way there, so it's a little more. Actually, something like that. Oh, how long I'll continue to stream? Not for much longer. Yeah, right now I'm pretty close to finishing this one up. I just want to get the material and the texturing better. I guess not literally the texturing. I'll address texturing another day. But something's not right with this one. I can't put my finger on it. I like the color, but I feel like it should be slightly different. Maybe I just need to look at it from a different angle. Material preview. See, and this is where it gets you, because with material preview, it looks really good. When you actually render it, it still looks pretty good, but not for the same reasons. So if I just move this over here, it's kind of ironic because this is the spot I was trying to avoid in the first place. How about this angle? It's not too bad. Actually, I kind of like it. One thing we can also do is, let's go back to layout. Oh, hang on, actually, seeing that set up, shoot, I really like that. There's some spots that could be better. What happens if we use the alpha for the height instead? Okay, it looks a lot more smooth. I kind of prefer using that. What if we increase this? Ah! That is straight out of my nightmares. Let's reduce that to a 0.1, or a 0.01, sorry. There we go. Maybe crank it up to a 0.012. 0.014. It's 0.013. Let's go back to 2. You could try adding the clear coat with specular. It's not a bad idea, actually. Whoop. I'm gonna add all of the specular. Okay, actually, hang on. Let's see what that looks like. Ooh, I like that a lot. And then the clear coat. We have so little of it. Yeah, we don't need the clear coat. So I'm going to add the specular and remove the clear coat. So that was a good recommendation. Thank you. I actually really like that. It looks really good. Something feels wrong about the color, and that's going to drive me crazy. Just the color itself, it feels slightly off. Is that it? I don't know why, but that slight addition made it feel better. As if we shade it flat. Okay, yeah, let's keep it smooth. Not bad. And then for the background, we could... glass. Nope, we're not doing that. We'll just use regular background. Except, we can use an image texture for the background as well. So what if I use the chess image as the background? Where is the... Is there an actual chess image, or is it just this infinite void of white? Okay, we're not doing that. Undo. plain gray background is fine. Only thing I'm wanting to do, I might actually go back into something about this edge right here feels wrong. So let's shift over into wireframe mode and hit E to expand it. Let's just, oops, accidentally selected more than I intended. That's the danger of wireframe mode. Hit E, click it there, then grab it and shift it up. Oops. Right there, then scale it in. Nope. That's not gonna work. Just gonna undo that. Something feels wrong and I'm not sure what it is. So that will be connected directly with that. Oh, actually, hang on. If I push E and then push S and scale out that individual point right there, that should create a bump. Yeah, a little ring right there. And so then if we hop over here and go into our rendered mode, actually, that looks a lot better. There's more of a pronounced lip. Control right click to add a loop cut, is that what you're looking for? No. Although I'm realizing that I'm seeing this after you posted because there's a slight delay on the stream. But that is a good suggestion. I appreciate it. We're gonna drop it out of go back to object mode. Drop out of that. Then we're going to go back into edit mode. Wireframe this baby. Line that up. Do that. Hit E to extrude. S, slight scale outwards. Actually, I'm just going to hit 1 so I can work more precisely. Get that one. Same process. That should be enough. So we'll go back to edit mode. Render that baby. Go there, and there's your more pronounced lip. This, however, still feels wrong. So I'm going to go back into edit mode. Actually, I'm just gonna undo that one. Let's see how that looks like normally. I know that was the thing I had before. So I think I'm okay actually with that one. So the only one I'm gonna worry about is this right here. Move that back over to rendered, 0. Yeah, and there's a lip now. Okay. I think that is going to be the end of that render. Eventually you get to a point where you gotta ask yourself, is there anything more I really want to add, or am I just crazy? Another thing that you should be doing this entire time is you should actually be saving periodically instead of just, you know, not. I should really see if they have an add-on that auto-saves. Might be a good idea. Let's check. Okay, doesn't look like they do, but I will do some research. Or I could just learn to actually save when I'm supposed to, instead of not doing that. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Just gonna center that a little bit. Phew. Hit render, render image, scroll out, and boom. Slightly worn chest piece, using a couple different techniques that I was not comfortable with, that you probably were comfortable with, because I'm getting the feeling a couple of you are a lot better at this than I am. But yeah, so that is that one today. It should autosave and everything in the temp file. Oh, you're right. Yeah, the .blender1 file. Yeah, I accidentally mixed that up with the .blender file the other day, and yeah, that was a mistake. Anyway, also, yeah, Forge Flareon, while you're on here, how's the sound quality right now? Because it's hard for me to check that myself without, you know, actually going back and checking later. You can click on it when you restart Blender. Yeah, my comments should also let you know how much of a lag there is. Looks like it's about 10 seconds. Ish. Probably. Maybe. Possibly. Who knows? Yeah, that is good to know. Oh, sweet. Sound is coming in great. Awesome. That is good to know. Then I will keep doing what I did today. Also, I should have a webcam tomorrow, so you can actually see my face when I'm doing this, as opposed to just hearing a disembodied voice. I thought it was coming in today, but apparently it was just my brother's shoes. Oh yeah, background music. Yeah, thanks. It's a good time. Right, well, yeah, that is the end of this one. So I'm going to wrap up and post the final image somewhere. In a second, this video will get processed as a regular video, and then it'll pop up on my channel for replay value. But Forge Flareon, thank you for your comments, and for the other peeps who are watching, thank you for watching as well. Hopefully I've been able to help you learn something, because I've definitely learned a lot. And look at that, we can make our own digital chess set. So yeah, I will be back tomorrow with another one of these. I don't know what I'm going to model tomorrow. If you guys have any recommendations, feel free to drop them in comments or something like that. Or we can just let the winds of fate carry us to the spot where dreams are made. That sentence got away from me. Anyway, thanks for joining, thanks for chilling, and I will see you later.